Hi guys, episode 9 and penultimate game for this season's Mamemeister's high score Kerfuffle, and last week we had Robotron 2084, released by Williams Electronics in 1982. Basically, this game can fuck off. It lures you in with a slick game mechanic, nice colours, great sound, and then punishes you with a high level of difficulty. Perfect for the arcade manufacturer, not so great for the player. And it's not just the difficulty. The game is probably a bit much for the hardware. Later on there is some slowdown, which does give you some time to assess the screen, but makes moving and shooting a little tricky initially. When sprites move on top of each other, they glitch, and the sprite behind becomes very difficult to see. This can result in shooting the first one, but not realising there is a second there that you can then crash into. The movement of the basic grunt enemy isn't smooth either. They just disappear and then reappear closer to you, making them difficult to track. I also don't like how if only a single pixel overlaps with an enemy, then you die, making it a little harsh when you only have 8 directions of movement and firing. And like Defender, your bullets are a single pixel wide, meaning accuracy needs to be high. I think there's a bit of rose-tinted spectacles for some people with this one. It's good, especially for 1982, but it has too many issues for me to want to continue playing it. I tried pretty hard to best my score of 160,000 and just hit a wall. Whether it's the brain level, the tank level, or the next couple, one of them will fuck you. The random nature of the enemy layout that means sometimes you'll do a level without losing a life, another time you'll lose 4. I can see why you'd like the game, but the difficulty is far from linear, and once you get a certain way in, it becomes frustrating. I enjoyed learning the game, but I have little desire to play it again. It was another popular week, so let's take a look at the scores. We had another record week, with 24 submissions, exceeding our record last week, including returns from everyone who played last week for the first time, which is great. And a new entry from Tracy Gleave. Welcome aboard, Tracy. We also had a submission from our youngest ever entrant, the 13-year-old son of Retrotron 2084, who did a pretty respectable 60,000. I'm probably the youngest player most weeks, but certainly not this time. Sorry Craig, but you were beaten by a child. Looking at the table, the standard was extremely high this week. 100,000 is a pretty decent Robotron score for a novice, but that would have put you 21st. Our new player Tracy did 130,000 and finishes 18th. I'm all the way down in 13th with my lowest finish of the season. Paul and Colin have both done well, but finished just outside the points. Everyone who's finished in the top 10 has done especially well this week, given the standard was so high. It was 227,000 just to get into the points this week, with Ian taking 10th. Retrotron 2084 Senior has finished in 9th, and Milthy just ahead in 8th. His best finishes have come in the Williams games we've had this season, so no doubt he likes those. Our new player from last week, Steve, has finished 7th. Ten Shearers has his lowest finish of the season in 6th, narrowly missing out to Big Juffer, who had a great effort this week. Our next 3 are all returners from the first entries last week. Both Nintendo Arcade and Pingy were playing on original hardware, which is cool. And Charlie Farr streamed his efforts on Twitch, which was great to see. 800,000 was more than he was expecting, and is an excellent effort. But our winner this week, despite the increased competition, and returning to his winning ways, is the ever-consistent Andrew. With a huge 1.2 million points, this victory is well earned. That's victory number 4 for Andrew this season, and puts him well on his way for the season win. Here is the distribution of the scores once again, and we see as close to a normal distribution as we're going to get. We have a big bolus of folks in the centre, which gradually spreads in each direction with no gaps. We see on the right, Charlie Farr is a bit ahead of Pingy and Nintendo Arcade, and our winner Andrew is out on his own, so that's a great effort from both of those guys, separating themselves from the pack. And now the difficulty curve. This is interesting to me. We see a steep increasing at the beginning, so that most people were able to do 100,000 or so. But after that, we see an inflection, and the curve flattens right off, and then gradually begins to climb again. To me, this shows that the biggest barrier is getting beyond 150,000 or so. Once you're good enough to do that, then more progress can be made, but getting to that point isn't easy. Beyond a certain point, the difficulty probably levels off, and it becomes more of an endurance exercise. With only 2 games left, many of the positions in the table are close to being set. But given many of our new players are putting great performances this week, there is a bit of movement further down the table. Steve's 7th place has jumped him up into 17th. Nintendo Arcade is up 7 places into 7th. Pingy is up 5, squeezing into the top 10, and that 2nd place for Charlie Farr has moved him into 7th. our top 6 remain unchanged. The point for Ian has moved him just 1 point behind Paulie Moz, so that's a tight battle for 5th. Juffer is well ahead of me now, so that's looking like 3rd spot secured for him. And at the top, that win for Andrew has seen him extend his lead and is looking unassailable. At the end of the season, I think I'll do 2 versions of the table, one with everyone who's played and another with a 5-game minimum. Both will be valid, and you can choose to look at whichever one you prefer. I'm pleased our new players have made a return. Maybe next season we can get some regular submissions from everyone and get an even better competition going. Now on to our penultimate game of this season. This week we're playing a generic Space Invaders clone, and that's Galaxian, released by Namco in 1979. Only joking, this is far from a generic clone. It was obviously heavily inspired by Space Invaders, but it also pushed things on, with a game mechanic where some of the enemies now fall from the sky, but also colours. Namco have put out so many great games over the years, and this is where it all started. Like Space Invaders, there's little to no story. It's a vertically oriented fixed shooter where you shoot the aliens, but rather than making their way down the screen towards you, either individuals or groups of them break away from the pack and come down towards you shooting bullets, which makes for quite the challenge. I didn't complete the first wave in my initial plays recording this footage, so it's pretty tricky. I'm expecting this to be another frustrating week. Let's see if it grows on me like the last fixed shooter we had, which was Carnival. It's another pretty popular game, so I hope we get a good number of people playing once again. I hope you all enjoy playing some Galaxian, and I'll be back next week with the final game of the season. See you then.